to stay with us. I'm also joined in by Michael Kugelman, who's the director at the South Asia Institute of Wilson Center. Many thanks to you, gentlemen. If I could actually begin with Tawfiq. Tawfiq, since you are in Bangladesh right now, the big question that's plaguing everybody's mind is who is backing these arsonists and these vandals, even as you and the other co-panelists in the previous discussion were claiming that they are not students and they are not part of that Gen Z movement in Bangladesh?
You know, at the very outset, he gave us the context, you know, that I am in Bangladesh. So since I am in Bangladesh, I have to be very careful what I say and what I do not say.
I'm glad you said that.
As I said, the thing is, you know, it's complete chaos. These youngsters have just gone to Bongo Bhavan, the presidential palace, to meet the president and the army chief, to finalize the details about this interim government. Meanwhile, there is complete lawlessness everywhere. It's not just in the temples that are coming under attack. Almost at every level, this witch hunt continues, triggered by Sheikh Hasina's fall. A lot of people are blaming Sheikh Hasina. She left this country. She fled this country. But then she left behind all these people who supported her. And at all levels, her supporters are being targeted. A lot of, in some cases, these personal scores have been settled. So you cannot justify or make a conclusion or make a, conclusive statement about what's happening now, you know, certain issues, given the situation at the moment.
All right.
And the military is overseeing the transition. But military is also trying to get its act together, settle its own, trying to settle down, because it's a different role. Under Sheikh Hasina, military had a lot of, military was involved in a lot of activities, which are not really exactly military.
I'm running short of time. I'll quickly have to bring in Ambassador Trigunayat. Ambassador, as Tawfiq's been saying that the military is overseeing this transition, but what kind of a supervision is this when you've seen the kind of writing that's taken place in the Prime Minister's own palace? Does that excuse the fact that they are still vandals, they are still arsonists over there who've been allowed inside that palace?
Well, as you know, this is sort of a mobocracy, and when the mob mentality prevails, irrespective, and there are always triggers, there are always certain interested parties who try to flame it much more. But as far as the army is concerned, you have to go by the Chief of Army Staff's statement, where he said that the army will not shoot at these protesters, and therefore they were permitted to vandalize. You have seen that some of them looted and even hugged the soldiers. So the army has this hands-off position at the moment. They are appealing and they're pleading with the protesters and not to do so, whether they are students or outsiders or political activists or the opposition members. So we'll have to see. It will take some time. It is not easy, because the only way the army or the security agencies can do is by using force. And they have seen that since 300 odd people have already been killed. And that's why they are being far more cautious. So this is the kind of chaos that prevails, and that will prevail for a little while longer, I would say. And I hope that all the parties in Bangladesh will agree to handling this and try to create a situation where people return to the universities or wherever they have to go back to, so that they are not on the streets. So as long as they are on the streets, you know, the lumpen elements, the poor people, and it is something that we have seen in the UK, you know, forget it, in Bangladesh, looting and all that. I mean, we are seeing the stores, people are running away. So in this kind of a situation, what kind of scenes that we are seeing are pretty unruly. And I think that the army at the moment is unable to control them, because doing that would mean that further violence, and they have seen the mood of the nation at the moment is defiance of the order. Plus, I don't think...
Right. Let me quickly bring in Michael. Michael, what do you make of the kind of statements that have not just come in from the United States State Department, but also the UK Home Department has in fact reacted, saying that this is not part of our policy, and that if she's already seeking refuge where she is, she should stay on, clearly indicating that the UK is in no mood to grant her any kind of political asylum. That also goes on to establish the fact that expectations that she'll be granted political asylum in the UK were vain in the first place itself.
Right, and my understanding is that the U.S. Has sought to revoke Sheikh Hasina's visa to come to the United States. So she may not have the option to come here as well. Look, I mean, I think that for the government in Washington and London and other Western capitals, there's a lot of concern and indeed outrage about how her security forces responded to what had been peaceful protests originally. And you talk about why did what had been peaceful protests become so violent? Well, it's because of how her security forces responded. The police, the student wing of the Awami League, and some others. It was particularly egregious. We're talking about helicopters firing on crowds below. We're talking about several dozen people, according to preliminary reports, shot in the head by state security forces. So, I think that you're not going to have the U.S. government go out of its way to accommodate her. I can't speak for the UK case, but I think at the end of the day, this is a very dangerous, volatile situation playing out in Bangladesh right now. And I think that Washington and other governments are going to be very careful about what they say publicly on the whole, just because they've got embassies, they've got people, they've got personnel in Bangladesh very concerned about what's playing out. So I think that the watchword for these governments overseas, particularly in the West, is just caution, to be careful about what you say. You don't want to risk doing or saying anything that could lead to threats to your personnel or interests in Bangladesh.
But Michael, before I quickly go over to Abhijit, do you not think that the authoritarianism of Sheikh Hasina is now being used for more of that writing, and how does that justify the writing that we are seeing plague the country at the moment?
Sorry, I didn't follow that. How has our authoritarianism affected what? Could you repeat that?
Sheikh Hasina's authoritarianism is being used rather as an excuse for the kind of rioting we've seen happen in Bangladesh, the kind of vandalism and arson that's taking place, where Hindu temples and minorities have also been attacked and targeted particularly.
Absolutely. I mean, this is horrific what we've seen over the last few days, including the attacks on Hindu temples, all of that. It can't. I mean, I condemn it in the strongest terms. Yeah, unfortunately, what's happened here is that you've had violent thugs that have exploited this instability. Those that are staging these attacks are not, they're not endorsed by the protest leaders. They're not part of the formal protest movement. And in fact, the protest leaders have condemned all of this violence being undertaken, targeting the Awami League, targeting religious minorities. This is why it's so important to get a grip on the security situation. And the Army's role here is a bit vague, a bit unclear. It appears a bit uncomfortable stepping in to help ease the violence. But yeah, this is unfortunately a terrible consequence of what had been initially a peaceful protest.
True. Abhijit, thank you so much for so patiently awaiting your turn. But I want to talk about the selective ideals of democracy that are propagated by the United States. We saw them, in fact, accuse the Sheikh Hasina government of not conducting free and fair elections in January, but they remained silent when it came to rigging of elections in Pakistan. Also, why revoke Sheikh Hasina's visa now? Why not do it when she was not granting that kind of, when she was in fact not willing to water down the quota issue? She actually managed to pacify the students later on, but why not revoke her visa back then?
See, there is no doubt, at least to many of us, that the US did not want Hasina to continue in power, not just now, but for the last few years. There could be very valid reasons of, high-handedness that with which Hasina conducted herself, suppressed movement after movement. But also there is, the US concern that Hasina Bangladesh is probably one of the rare places where India and China are on the same page. Both wanted Hasina to be to continue in power, and that I can understand America's discomfort with that. But the big concern is that if indeed US has had a role in this, again, this the current quota movement had started spontaneously as a by students, but we have seen that there's several sinister elements have taken over, including the Jamaat and stuff like that. It's too organized to be spontaneous now. It's too sort of this thing. So um, if at all America has has a hand in this, then it should it should at least remember how it has left this kind of state it has left Afghanistan in.
Absolutely.
And also its role, it just gave Pakistan a free pass, completely rigged elections, as you rightly said. But having said that, one more thing that I want to tell you, I feel, is that India, I think put all its eggs in one basket, that is Sheikh Hasina. I think it's a colossal security, I would say,
All right.
miscalculation by India.
All right. Ambassador Trigunayat, we've seen protesters storming the Consul General's premises in New York. We've seen how the father of the nation of Bangladesh, his photograph was in fact completely destroyed and dethroned in Washington. Is that democracy in the United States eyes?
Well, I think that these are very, very sad signs, and the pictures that we are seeing. At the end of the day, the Sheikh Mujibur Rahman had got the independence to the Bangladesh, brought Bangladesh into being. So the fact that certain hooligans have tried to decimate that and bring that down, his statue, or even removing portraits from the consulate's office in New York, I think that these are the indicators of times to come, that how divisive the society is becoming, or whether it is being really hijacked by, or for that matter, whether the opposition, Jamaat or BNP, are they so adamant that they are going to deny the heritage that this Sheikh Mujib had left. So I think that these are very, very difficult times, and if it's really something that is deep-seated or has become deep-seated over the years, I think that says a lot about the societal differences within Bangladesh.
All right, Michael, I'm going to, in fact, ask you to give your closing thoughts. The need for India to engage bilaterally with Dhaka at the moment, because much rests upon that engagement. Because remember, we also risk Pakistan and China, taking advantage of India being on the back foot with the new government dispensation.
I absolutely recognize that this poses a major challenge for India, not just in terms of the political implications, but also the security implications. If you have extended unrest in Bangladesh, the impacts that could have for India's border security and for refugee flows and all of that, that's a significant issue. But if I may very briefly respond to what was said about the potential role of the U.S., these were spontaneous protests led by people that were upset about a plan to bring back job quotas. It escalated into something much bigger and much more violent only after Bangladeshi security forces responded with egregious levels of force. That is why you're seeing so much rage play out now. The U.S. had nothing to do with that. Not to mention, why would the U.S. want to sponsor some type of protest movement that would lead to an outcome that, quite frankly, opens up an opportunity for political factions and parties to come to power that would be more inclined to work more closely with China.
I'm afraid I'll have to leave it at that because I'm running short of time. Many thanks to you, gentlemen, for in fact sharing in your very precious insights here on Plain Speak. And with that, it's a quick wrap from my end. Thank you so much for watching. Here's, in fact, hoping that peace does prevail in Bangladesh. And with that, it's a quick wrap. Thank you so much for watching. News and updates continue on CNN News.